Are you looking to establish a powerful online presence for your brand? Look no further than Live the Dream Media. Our team of experts possess the capabilities and skills necessary to make it happen. From creating compelling content to analyzing data and making strategic decisions, we've got it covered. Don't let a lack of social media know-how hold you back. Visit ltdmedia.net for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Local Marana. I'm Clint Peak, your host, and I have the pleasure this morning, as always, of being with the Marana Mayor, Ed Honea. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Clint. It's a beautiful day.
Another beautiful day.
And I understand you want to hear a little about history today.
Yeah. Let's do a little.
I'm always learning about history myself, and I was just at an event, and they were talking about the first school built in the Marana area, was built in Rito neighborhood in 1889.
1889.
I was a small child at that time. And, it kind of puts things into perspective. And if you stop and look at that, if you look across from the Rito neighborhood, there's a big black water tank that holds about 30,000 gallons of water. That water tank was there to take on water for the steam engines for the railroad.
Isn't that crazy?
Hence the name Marana, which means thicket or bosque with a lot of the Spanish workers. You know, we're going to the thicket to work. We're going to cut wood. You're going to take on water in Rito for the steam engines to make their way through our community. So, that's some kind of unique history. People wonder why the tank is there or wonder kind of where we started. As time has moved forward, that school closed and we moved up the road a couple miles and stuff like that to where the headquarters of Marana Schools are now. But been people for 130 years living in the Marana area.
Wow.
And doing some business there. It's so much stuff going on. Some of the history of even like Cortaro Marana Irrigation District and a gentleman named Edwin Post who helped start that project really in the 20s. I have a picture in my office. In fact, I gave it or sent it over to the visitor center so people could see it, of a cotton gin in Marana, and the picture was taken in 1929. So there were people there before that growing cotton and stuff, and they needed a gin in the area. And it's a pretty unique picture because the framing's on the outside and the tin's on the inside. And people say, well, why? It's an odd-looking building. Back then, there's so much dust from ginning cotton that you had to wash the walls down occasionally. Well, if the smooth walls on the inside with the corrugated metal, you could just hose it down and wash the stuff down and clean your building up. So, that's some of the stuff. In the 30s, the Cortaro Marana Irrigation District built a mud adobe building that is not there anymore on Sandario Road, and that was their office. It was Producers Cotton Oil and CMID. Really, Producers Cotton Oil, I think, built the building. And they built several gins there at the time. Now they're all gone. Ginning has changed quite a bit. But they built a building there in the 30s with mud adobe and straw. And the building was built by the Yaqui Indian workers who had the skills to make the blocks and lay them. Then they plastered the building to keep the mud adobe from deteriorating. And that building stood there till about 1995 or something. So 60 years.
Okay, and
a
where's
mud
that,
adobe building.
Where's that at? Where's that?
It was torn down. That's
where is it?
Right about where the Bisbee Breakfast Club and some of that stuff is on Sandario, right off the. And when we tore it down, being historically minded, we wanted to save the material, and we were going to have we had it photographed, measured, and everything else. And eventually we'll rebuild that building over in our Heritage Park, which is about a mile away, closer to the river. But trying to retain our history. In that same area was the old high school. And that building, unfortunately, was torn down when they built I-10 about 1960. I don't think you could tear it down today because of the historical effects of that building, but they did at that time. And I have a picture of my dad in the 30s in front of that building when he was in middle school.
Would that be about where the gas station then is there on that exit?
Yes, right behind that gas station and in that area. And unfortunately, we lost some of that material. Nowadays, historical material is much more protected, and you have to go around it or do things to facilitate it. But that entire building, it was a 2-story building with a basement in Arizona, and it was heated by steam. You had a boiler in the basement, and it ran steam up through pipes into these metal heaters in the classrooms. You learn not to touch them because you had a nice blister, literally a blister on your arm from the boiling hot water in those heaters. But that's how they heated the building, with steam.
So that building probably was destroyed in what, roughly 1970?
About 1960.
Oh, 1960.
And,
okay.
When they were building I-10 in that area. I wish we had that building.
Yeah.
We could have
I remember
protected
the other one. Now that you mentioned that other one.
The mud adobe building?
That was 1995 or something like that, right?
Right.
I remember that one now that you mentioned
and unfortunately, we've kind of lost some of that stuff.
I hate that.
But there's so much history in Marana. Marana really, CMID, Cortaro Marana Irrigation District, really kind of gave us our push to get started.
And when, what time frame?
I'm going to say in the mid to late 20s, really got going in the 30s. And cotton became the king.
Yeah.
And you grew cotton everywhere. Well, then that brought in farmers, and it brought in people to work on the farms.
And that was about the time frame your grandparents
showed up
in the 30s.
And a lot of the people that worked on the farms were people of color. And unfortunately, in those days, we didn't all live together like we do today in Marana, and I'm very proud of that. I might get to that a little later. And they kind of settled in Rito. And that became a huge neighborhood of mainly people of color. Many of my very good friends from school grew up in that neighborhood and stuff there in North Marana. And the culture was kind of changing. You had a lot of Yaqui craftsmen that came to work on the farms and all that kind of stuff. And they started the Yoam Pueblo, which was actually land owned by Cortaro Marana Irrigation District. And they came because they needed, I think they call them Sanjaros, people to work to run the water or pull the gates out of the ditches or run water to different fields and stuff. And eventually that land was given to Pascual Yaqui tribe. And it's not tribal land, but the families that live on the land are Pascual Yaqui members. So we're proud of that. We did maintain some of our history.
And we still see the modern version of those water canals still at work along that same stretch.
Yeah.
And still got the gates and...
So we kind of started with farming, cotton farming primarily. And then we branched out a little bit into ranching around the foothills areas and stuff that weren't set up for farming, because you had mesquite beans and grass and stuff for the cattle to graze on. And also the Asarco mine, Silver Bell mine. And the history on it, which started, I think, really in the 1800s. It was the old Sasco mine, which some of the remnants on the other side of the mountain are still there. And so you ended up with mining. and they hauled the ore down to I-10, and there was a railroad spur there, and they would dump the ore in a big chute, and it would load it on railroad cars, and then they would send it to Hayden or somewhere else to have it smeltered, into copper. So that became a huge part of our community. About that same time, El Paso Gas built a pumping station out there as well. To put these in perspective, Silver Bell had about 300 homes up there. The gas pumping station had about 80. But in order to get workers to come and work, you had to have housing in the area for the people to work. Now, that housing in both areas has gone away, although both are still open. Mm-hmm. But they drive from North Marana or Tucson to work in those facilities. So we were miners. We were the gas pumpers. We were farmers. We were ranchers. And we had all kinds of different things going in. There were also many different Chinese families that moved into North Marana. Several of them are really good friends of mine until today. Councilmember Herb Kai is on our council, and we graduated from high school together. And they started moving into the area. A lot of times they would sell produce off of a trailer. They would go to labor camps and sell foods to a lot of these folks. Many of them probably didn't have a car, and so they would come around and sell produce or different things to the people that lived in the labor camps. In the very early days, the schools were segregated. There was a lady named Mrs. Maxwell, a lady of color, great lady, tremendous history on her alone. And she taught the Native American kids, the black kids, the Asian kids, or whatever, because you couldn't have everybody going to school together. Yeah. Well, I told you when I started in 1953 in another podcast, everybody looked like me. Yeah. I mean, they were better looking, but they had this same shade of skin that I do. What I'm very proud of is that, like in 1954, the next year, we were every shade of the rainbow. Yeah. And people think, well, you're a little podunk farming, ranching town or a bunch of miners or something like that. You know, we had kids, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, rich and poor, from all over the school district, which is about 500 square miles. And we all went to school together.
So what happened there? What happened between 1953 and 1954?
I don't really know.
Because there had to be some catalyst
and I don't know what the catalyst is, to be honest with you. And I think it was statewide maybe that happened. But the thing I'm looking at is in the 60s, you had racial riots. And some even in the 70s, as far east as Boston and some of the suburban areas around there. And I'm looking at that, and by that time, I'm a young adult, probably in the military at that time, out of high school. And I'm like, man, my black and red and brown friends went to school with me. Yeah. We were in the same classes. We played on the same sport teams or the same band or whatever. And, you find it really unique. And I think we were kind of on a cutting edge. And that cutting edge lives in Marana today. Yeah. And I may be redundant because I've talked about some of these, but I think it's so important. You go through a neighborhood in Marana, and I don't care if it's the Honey Heights or Berry Acres neighborhoods that started in the 50s and 60s, or Continental Ranch, or some of the newer ones that started in the 2000s or whatever. You go down and knock on 10 doors, you'll find a black family, a Hispanic family, a white family, an Asian family, a Native American family, and mixed race families, all living together as neighbors. You
just described my street that I live on in Oro Valley. I mean, literally there's like 10 houses on that particular little street, and it's the diversity on there is like what you just described.
And I just love that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we just didn't have to, go through all those battles when I was a young man.
Yeah.
Because that was taken care of when I was a kid, 6 or 7 years old. And I love that in our communities that I call us eclectic communities.
Yeah.
It's just nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing you're interested in your neighbor is they're friendly.
Yeah.
And the dog doesn't bark too much.
Yeah.
Other than that,
especially late at night.
You don't care what color they are or what they do or anything. Everybody's welcome in our communities. I think that has lived until today. I've had people ask, why do you think Marana's different? We're growing so quickly. We're becoming a major power in Pima County. Over 60,000 people now. Housing is growing very rapidly, but commercial is even growing faster right now. And I said, I think we maintain those old philosophies. I walk a lot because of my macular. I don't drive. People stop and talk to me on the road. Do you need a ride? If they don't know me, or honk and wave, hi, Mayor, or hi, Ed, or whatever. And we're 60,000 and urbanized in several of our communities, but we're still that friendly little country town.
Yeah.
And we respect our neighbors and everybody and everything that's going on. If you move it on a little bit further, and I know I'm jumping, but we can get into
that's
detail
what history
on some
is.
Of this, is even talking about our state of the town, which is going to be April 6th at the Ritz-Carlton. And if you don't have a ticket, you might not be able to get one because they sell out pretty quickly.
Got ours.
But you know what the theme is? Openness.
Mm-hmm. Transparency.
Our speakers are going to be Dan Marries, the Dean of Anchors in Pima County, Tucson, Marana. Mm-hmm. Dan works in Marana at KOLD. He lives in Marana in the Willow Springs neighborhood.
Raises his family in Marana.
Family in Marana and everything else. He's going to talk. Danelle Confair, who lives in the San Lucas neighborhood right across from me, is the weekend anchor on ABC. And she lives in Marana, and her kids are growing up in Marana. And she's getting ready to have a kid. And I wanted her to speak because of the format. And she says, Mayor, I'm going to be, I might have my baby about a week or two before the event. And I said, well, put the baby in a sling and come and talk. So she may be on video, but she's part of the format. The other speaker is going to be Vickie Hathaway, who runs our communication departments. And Vic just, for our community outreach and putting us in touch with people and being transparent, she's very important. And then I will speak as well. And I'm going to talk about what we're doing right here, doing podcast on water, parks, police, roads, whatever you want to talk about, growth, history. And I'm going to talk about me doing these and Terry Rosema on our town website doing podcast as well. In fact, I did one with him Monday. We want the people in this community to know exactly what we're doing. Our budget is on the webpage. If we take in money, we post it on the webpage. If we spend money, we post it on the webpage. Our hirings and different things are on the webpage. And then Terry and I doing podcast on different subjects. We don't have anything to hide. We'll always tell you the truth. And the axiom behind that is, I will always tell you the truth, even if you don't like it. Because I don't want to remember the lie I told you the next time I'm talking to you or your friends. And that's kind of a way of life here.
I can speak to the information that's available because I mentioned this before, I believe in another podcast or certainly in a conversation you and I were having. I needed some information, some demographic information. And rather than make a phone call, I looked online, more than what I needed was available to me.
Right.
It was incredible. And I'm going to throw one number out from that demographics that is like really cool. And I think it kind of sets the tone for Marana, not only for where we are currently, but where we're going in the future. Our average demographic, our average age in Marana is 39.6 years old.
Right.
That's a growing community.
That means we're a lot of young families.
That means we're growing.
In. You know, I said we're an open book, and I'm an open book, and you may not like the book, but you'll know exactly where we are and why we're doing what we're doing. I have made friends that sent me a scathing email or something like that, or a phone call about something I did. And once I try to meet with all these people individually if they're that upset. Sit down and talk to them, tell them why we did what we did, how we got there, and what we're doing. I've had some of those people turn around and end up being some of my best friends.
Isn't that cool?
They're passionate about what they believe, but a lot of times there's ignorance of the subject. And I don't mean that to be negative. I just mean they just don't know.
Right.
And if you tell them why, even if they don't like the book,
right,
they can understand, reasonable people can understand why you're doing, or why you're spending the money, or why you're doing what you're doing. And so we're just gonna tell people we're transparent.
Right.
You want to know something about us, call
Ask.
us. My personal cell phone number's on my business card. I mean, the office is on there as well.
And I've seen you pass a lot of those out. I saw you pass out some this morning.
Passed out one this morning. But, I mean, if you want to talk to me, call me. I would rather you call my office because, like I said, I got 4 meetings today.
You're right.
But it's a
and you've already had 2 already, and that's just we're just in Wednesday.
Right.
The rest of your week looks like that, doesn't it?
Oh,
you got meetings tomorrow. You got meetings Friday,
and you have
public events on Saturday.
With some high level officials over the next couple of days. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I might the next podcast.
Well, we're going to want to report on that.
But we're accessible, and it's not just me; it's all of our council. I will tell you what I did last week, and I was talking about events. I went to 2 chamber events. One was to name the chamber building after Ed Stolmaker, a man that I love and respect. I called him my brother, who passed away a couple of years ago and did so. And one was the 2340 Foundation at the Ritz, their luncheon, where they honor teachers and individuals in the community that help education, and students with $2,500 scholarships. And I think they had about 10 of them.
That's awesome.
And then I was at the minimum security prison for a meeting because those people work on helping to clean
That's
our roads.
That's something you do regularly, isn't it?
Yeah,
the prison outreach.
And I was at the Chamber of Commerce, like I said, for the Ed Stolmaker, but I was also at their other meeting, the Insights meeting at the Northwest Fire, and I was the speaker there. So I said I went to 2 chamber events. I went to 2 school events, went to the prison, talked to a bunch of people, and, in fact, had a meeting this week. Amanda Wiggins from the chamber we have a new Josh, and I can't remember his last name, the new director for Marana Health Care. And him, and brought Dan Streeter from the school, and Chief Brad Bradley, and Terry Rosema, and Eric Montague, and myself, and different ones in to meet this individual and kind of talk, because what we're trying to do in this community is make sure everybody does well. And our philosophy is I don't have to get the credit. If you can do it better than me, you do it.
Yeah.
And if you are successful, school, fire district, Chamber of Commerce, other entities in the town, if you're successful, we will be successful because you are what makes us successful.
I'm going to plug not only the elected officials, and the people you mentioned, but the staff at the town of Marana. Right. You reach out. They might not answer the phone. You might have to leave a message. I'm not going to say that they are always, but I'm telling you, you're going to get a call back every time.
Everybody gets
every time.
That's company policy. Somebody sends an
email. What can you say that with anywhere else? In most organizations, that 100%, you're going to get a call back.
Well, you can't.
You're not going to say that.
And I will even talk about our friends at the city of Tucson. I've talked about this before. Their police personnel are great. They're good people, men and women. Risk themselves every day to protect them. Mm-hmm. When they come on duty, they have 25 calls on their computer. Mm-hmm. Well, they have to go to ones where somebody may be in danger or property's in danger or something like that. And 10 or 12 of those calls don't get any response. No callback, no response to the call or anything else. You know, if somebody calls about a suspicious person in their neighborhood and the other person calls and says, I see somebody breaking into a business, where's the police officer going to go? And you may never get a response on that person in your neighborhood. And it's not because they're bad people. There's just not enough of them. That will not happen in Marana. If you call us, you will get a response. Like I said, we're an open book. Yep. Sometimes you don't like the book, but you will get a response. Yep. And we want to be transparent with you and open to you.
Hey, so we're going to wrap this up because you got a couple places you got to go right away. Hey, put them to the test. If you got a concern, an issue, a compliment, call up the town of Marana and get involved. And as I always say, if you like what's going on, stay active, keep the ball moving. If you don't like what's going on, get involved, stay active, bring the changes.
And I will come and talk to your church group, your civic group, you know, your 4-H or FFA group. I don't read to the kids anymore because of my vision problems, but I was at 2 schools last week and the kids read to me. But then I answer questions for children. And, you know, for a 7 or 8 year old, the most important question is, when are you going to fix the teeter-totter at my park? And for
pressing issues.
But that is an issue for them.
Yes.
And I love that. Yeah. I love talking to the kids. And they ask you pretty poignant questions. How much you weigh? How old are you? Do you have a dog? You know, but it's important to them.
Yes.
And it teaches them that elected officials are just people like their parents and grandparents. Right.
Good stuff. Hey, if you ever need a driver on that school stuff, let me know.
Okay.
Hey, Ed, as usual, it's awesome to be with you. We'll be back real soon with Mayor Ed. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.